गिरीश जी, गुड आफ्टरनून। स्वागत है मेरे चैनल पे एक बार फिर आपका। और आज बात करनी है श्रीलंका के बारे में। लेकिन इससे पहले कि हम बात करें, मैं आपको एक स्टोरी सुनाऊंगा। ये पर्सनल स्टोरी है। एक्चुअली लीडरशिप का क्या फेल्योर हो सकता है, ये उसका एक क्लासिकल एग्जाम्पल है। मैं बारामूला में पोस्टेड था 85 टू 87, और तब मेरी नेक्स्ट पोस्टिंग आई से अराउंड 87 सितंबर में मैं मेरठ मूव कर गया। आई गॉट मैरिड दैट टाइम। तो उसके बाद जहाँ पे मैं रह रहा था, एक दिन शाम का टाइम था। इफ़ आई एम नॉट रॉन्ग, वो दिवाली से पहले के कुछ दिन थे। पड़ोस का जो मकान था, वहाँ से फिर रोने की आवाज़ आई। तो मैं बड़ा चकित हुआ कि क्या हो गया। तो फिर पता चला है कि जो ऑफिसर है, एक कर्नल साहब, ही वॉज डिप्लॉयड इन श्रीलंका एंड ही वॉज द
Indian
फर्स्ट।
Peacekeeping Force.
यस, एंड ही वॉज द फर्स्ट कैजुअलिटी ऑफ पवन। जो इंडियन आर्मी वहां पे गई थी और फिर जाफना की तरफ जो एडवांस उन्होंने किया था, ही वॉज द फर्स्ट कैजुअलिटी। तो बाद में क्या हुआ कि मुझे वो ओ पवन एज पार्ट ऑफ द प्रमोशन एग्जाम मुझे पढ़ने का मौका मिला जब मैं जूनियर कमांड कर रहा था। तो ऐसे अफसरों से मेरी बात हुई जो श्रीलंका में डिप्लॉयड थे। और उसके बाद मैं एक ऐसे इंटरेस्टिंग आदमी से मिला जो आप विश्वास नहीं कर सकते, जो वहाँ पे एक्चुअली हाई कमिश्नर था उस टाइम पे, जे दीक्षित।
जी, फॉरेन मिनिस्टर, वो सेक्रेटरी भी रहे अपने
हाँ,
यहाँ के।
बाद में रहे वो। बट उस टाइम पे जो प्रेसिडेंट था श्रीलंका का, वो था जयवर्धने, और प्राइम मिनिस्टर था प्रेमदासा। तो ओवरऑल मालूम है मेरा क्या इंप्रेशन पड़ा, कि अगर कंट्री की लीडरशिप इनकॉम्पिटेंट हो ना, तो उसको कोई भी बेवकूफ बना देगा। और उस टाइम पे हमारी लीडरशिप, मैं इंडिया की लीडरशिप की बात कर रहा हूं, इतनी बेवकूफ थी, इतनी इनकॉम्पिटेंट थी, इतनी इग्नोरेंट थी, इतनी इल इन्फॉर्म थी। मैं बड़े स्ट्रॉन्ग वर्ड्स यूज कर रहा हूं। राजीव गांधी को कुछ नहीं पता था। नथिंग ही न्यू अबाउट के व्हाट इज गोइंग टू हैपन इन श्रीलंका। जिनको आप ट्रेंड कर रहे थे, उन्हीं के अगेंस्ट में आप लड़ाई लड़ने चले गए, और वो भी 24 घंटे के नोटिस पे। और मैं ऑफकोर्स मिलिट्री लीडरशिप को भी ब्लेम कर रहा हूं इसमें। आपने भेज दिया वहां पे। जब आपकी लीडरशिप इतनी वीक होती है, इतनी कॉम्पिटेंट होती है, तो आप समझ सकते हो कि देश के साथ क्या हो सकता है, जो इंडिया के साथ उस टाइम पे हुआ। और ओ पवन कितना बड़ा फेल्योर रहा, और कितना एम्बरेसमेंट हुआ कंट्री का। इकोनॉमिकली कितना लूज किया, कितने जवान वहां पे चले गए, जस्ट बिकॉज ऑफ इनकॉम्पिटेंस ऑफ अवर पॉलिटिकल लीडरशिप। और आज अगर आप श्रीलंका को देखें, वही श्रीलंका है जो अपने आप को ऐसे इकोनॉमिक मेल्ट डाउन में पाता है। और इसका सबसे बड़ा रीजन यह है, एक पुअर इनकॉम्पिटेंट लीडरशिप। ये जो आपके राजा पक्सा है, गोताबया राजा पक्सा, और फिर उसका भाई, पूरी फैमिली, पूरे श्रीलंका के एज इफ राजे महाराजे, इन लोगों ने श्रीलंका को इस हालत में पहुंचा दिया जिस हालत में आज आप देख रहे हैं। और जब ऐसी लीडरशिप किसी कंट्री में हो जाएगी तो कुछ भी हो सकता है। और हमें कई बार लगता है कि जो मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ फाइनेंस है, जो फाइनेंस वाले लोग हैं, वो बड़े स्ट्रिक्ट होते हैं, अपनी दादागिरी करते हैं, सिस्टम को चोक करके रख देते हैं, आपको बजट अलॉट नहीं करते। और श्रीलंका को देख के लगता है कि वो ठीक ही करते हैं, क्योंकि अदरवाइज बाकी लोग कितने इरेस्पॉन्सिबल और कितने एकदम कैजुअल हो सकते हैं इकोनॉमिक मैनेजमेंट के प्रति। एंड देन एनीथिंग कैन हैपन। दिस इज व्हाट इज द पिक्चर ऑफ श्रीलंका टुडे। दिस इज माय फर्स्ट ओपनिंग रिमार्क। अब आप से मैं रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि आप अपना इंप्रेशन श्रीलंका के बारे में बताएं, जिस हालत में वो आज हैं, क्यों हैं, कैसे वो बाहर आ सकते हैं अगर पॉसिबल है ऑब्वियसली, और इंडिया के लिए क्या लेसन हैं। क्योंकि ट्विटर पे अगर आप देखो तो काफी लोग आज बात कर रहे हैं, अरे इंडिया का तो इतना डेप्ट है, इनका जो फॉरेक्स रिजर्व है वो कितना कम है, दैट सॉर्ट ऑफ थिंग पीपल आर टॉकिंग अबाउट इंडिया। और खास बात यह है कि पाकिस्तानी भी बात कर रहे हैं। आप समझ सकते हो, पाकिस्तानी के अभी एक ब्रिगेडियर साहब ने ट्विटर पे लिखा कि बी वेरी वेरी केयरफुल अबाउट इंडिया डिजाइन, वी शुड हेल्प श्रीलंका। मैंने उसको पलट के लिखा, ब्रिगेडियर साहब देख तो लो आपकी क्या हालत है। आप सिर्फ उनको एक ही एडवाइस दे सकते हो कि घबराना नहीं है। आप समझ सकते हो। तो मेरा तो ये ओपनिंग साल्वो, और ये बड़ा मैं मानता हूँ, मुझे थोड़ा सा गुस्सा आ रहा है वहाँ की लीडरशिप के ऊपर, बट यू कैन बी बैलेंस्ड एंड वी शुड बी बैलेंस्ड ऑफ कोर्स। ओवर टू यू।
थैंक यू कर्नल। आपने बहुत अच्छा बोला, दिस इज द लीडरशिप विच मैटर एंड द एडवाइजर हु आर एडवाइजिंग आर लीडरशिप. आई रिमेंबर दिस story of 71 war. Before start of war, I think we were also having the similar situation when there was the influx of refugees and Bangladesh side or East Pakistan at that time. And Indian leadership was in a mood to start action immediately. But Field Marshal Manekshaw, he was a very, you can say, a balanced and realistic hero and visionary who guided in a simple and plain word to Prime Minister Indira Gandhi what is the right time to take action. And they listened to him and acted as per his advice. And we all know what has happened in 71 war.
Marshal Manik.
Field Marshal Manekshaw, and to avoid monsoon and all those things, which was the period when Bangladesh is worst period to get into all those things. So waiting for 6 months, another thing, as it is clearly available in all the books. So I think you are right. Leadership and their advisor play a very critical role, and situation can be changed from winning to lose or lose to winning. It all depends upon at what time and what kind of a decision we are taking. Sri Lanka, if we look at up to a few months back, we were getting a lot of social media, messages that Sri Lankan GDP is much higher than or almost double of India, and ranking worldwide, ease of doing business, and all those things are much above. And India is placed so, and Sri Lanka is above, and Pakistan is above us, and so many things were happening in spite of government of India was taking corrective action with all due respect during COVID and prior to COVID, and people were ridiculing the right action taken by the leadership of the country. I was going through this things that how come a country which is having a GDP almost in per capita GDP, I'm not talking of the total GDP, but the per capita GDP of Sri Lankan is almost more than 70-80% or almost double of India, and why they have landed up in this situation. So this number or this statistics can be sometimes very disturbing, and we feel very happy with that number, but don't know the reality in how the things are happening within those numbers. Let me first go back to 2000. And during early 2000, India and Sri Lanka, they were in the similar situation. And World Bank, as per the economy, as per the situation of the country and other thing, they rate the countries as per the low economy or low middle income economy or middle income economy and higher income and other things. So depending upon the GDP per capita and the growth and other thing forecast, based on that, Sri Lanka was changed from low income economy country to low middle income economy country. Means higher status was given because their country was doing well and other things. Everybody was happy. People were happy that yes, now their status has gone and other things. But with this thing comes, there is a caveat. What is that? The earlier these countries, low income economy or what we call them, they are getting loan or international help at a very subsidized interest. Almost less than 1% rate of interest was there, and payback period was also something around 30 to 40 years, the time horizon when these countries has to pay back that loan. So World Bank gives loan and IMF gives that how to repay that EMI, then we take it from IMF. So this is a different story. The same thing happened with the Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka has changed from low income country to low middle income, means they had come from low income to middle income. And India was also in the low middle income group. So we were in the similar capacity. So what has happened after that? And in the last, you can say 60, 70 years, there's two families who are ruling this Sri Lanka. Rajapaksa and Vikram Singhe and Bandanaike, and these are the families who are ruling one after the other. So it is remaining either you or me, means these are the two people who are running this country. There is a complacency within that, and the system was also aligned to them, and they are also knowing, and the people who are coming for that business, they also know whom to please and how to get business done. And later on, our neighbor China entered there in the name of development of infrastructure and many things. And on a paper, it looks very, very good that we'll create an infrastructure, and this infrastructure will change you like Singapore or Dubai and all those things. So people feel very happy that there will be a total change situation from what today we are having, and will be something like Singapore and Dubai. And same thing happening with our neighbor countries, not only Sri Lanka, but you name Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Afghanistan, all those countries are going through that. Myanmar are going through the same phase. India was the only country who, even though we were having a good relation at that time with China, but we understood their plan and registered not only at our level, but at an international level, that how whether it is good for us or it is a debt trap. At that time, even the Western countries or APEC countries, Australia, New Zealand, and all those countries were not listening to India that what India is telling is correct, that it is a debt trap, and most of these countries will not be able to repay their loan structure, whatever way China is having with these countries. And now we are seeing the result, not only in China, but many other countries, where many countries has stopped either, or they said, stop, we will not go further beyond this point. China has entered into Sri Lanka, and the infrastructure was created or being created, or can say is under progress, whether it is port or the other area. But it's like that you're creating the facilities without actually assessing what is your internal strength. If something is not as per those assumptions, as per your prediction, what will happen to the infrastructure you have created? Suppose you are carrying capacity, or the production capacity is 100 ton, and you are creating a facilities for 1,000 ton, then what will happen to the extra 900 ton? But infrastructure is going as per the cost, and then they have to repay. If suppose that business is not generating, it was not a problem of China, it is a problem of the country where this infrastructure is being created. So Sri Lanka is now facing that problem of predicted, assumed capacity, means business which will come, versus actual capacity and the actual business which has come. So there is a vast gap between the two, and they are not in a position to generate that much revenue from that infrastructure, whether local demand or external demand, which was to be generated, that business model, which was projected by the lender like China and other countries. And they are facing this problem. And later on, India tried, but somehow with the union, local labor union and other thing, Japan and India was not allowed to enter into that, and China took over that port for 99-year lease, and things are worsening after that. Another thing which has happened during this period is 2019 onwards, that COVID. Now, this country, Sri Lanka, let's say, they're having their own small export business. Their GDP is in the terms of, total value wise is something around $81 billion today. We are talking today. Out of which their major export is coming out from apparel, or from tea and agriculture products and ceramic products. And tourism is also one of the major export forex earning for them, and local employment, which we can say, and remittance from the people who are mainly working in Middle East. Sri Lanka, it is as good as tourism. The remittance is $200 million, and tourism forex revenue generation, and $230 million is the remittance from the Sri Lankans settled in Middle East and other part where they are working. Now, during this 2 years period, because of business, the exports was reducing, They were not having a tourism, but at the same time, this loan and which they have taken it from various agencies, is interest itself was called creating a problem. Now they have reached to a situation that against say today's term, we call it 81 billion dollar is their GDP. They are having a loan of $57 billion. Now, they are not in a position to buy even the fuel for a month. They have to now depending upon week to week basis, day to day basis. And we can say India is helping them with a credit line and providing them fuel and helping them in this our need. And many other countries are not supporting them what they were earlier thinking. So even at the end of this year, they have to pay as an interest alone. The EMI is $7 billion. Now, where they do not have a few $1 million as their forex and expecting them to pay $7 billion is a very, very, very tough task, if not impossible, until unless something miracle happens or country give them a line, okay, we'll waive off your interest period for 6 years, 7 years, and then come. So it's very, very tough. They are negotiating, but they are negotiating from a loser point of view, not from the equal point of view, which is the terms and condition will be very, very difficult. You can see a similar kind of situation we have faced in 91 when our forex was in a very typical situation, very, very low position. And we have to keep our gold as a reserve to get forex for our country, 91, 92, if you remember.
Yes.
And at that time, Mr. Rao changed the policy from socialist to open policy and other thing. And then we are seeing its result. Now, every since then, our country is having that advantage. So from that aspect, until unless this situation, now something is internally within the hand of Sri Lanka, but there are most of the things which is happening is beyond them, or rather beyond many countries by Sri Lanka alone. Even we are not in a position to control, even Europe is not in a position to control. So geopolitical situation is impacting one of the import-export of any countries. And similarly, tourism is also depending upon how the situation in your country, so which is also impacting. So it's a very difficult from that angle. So what the lesson is very clear, जिसे हिंदी में बोलते हैं ना, उतने पैर पसारिए जितनी लंबी आपकी चादर होती है.
बिल्कुल.
हम लोग have forget that basic principle कि okay, what is my actual strength and what is my actual capacity? I should take loan or debt or to that extent which I can handle, rather than promising or projecting on a picture something will go like this, and then everything will be very rosy. But if things are not turning out, there should be a plan B. What if things are not as per your projection or as per your assumptions? We are also having the similar situation. You will be very surprised that Reserve Bank of India, 15th Planning Committee, which they call it, they have given a report to Government of India that many of our states, if not all, but many of our states are not observing financial discipline. Now, what is that financial discipline? That every state is having their revenue and their expenditure. They have to go for capital expenditure. They have to go for their basic requirement like salary and other thing and other schemes. But for winning election and popular measure, we create a situation where our expenditure is much more than revenue, and we are not taking a hard step or unpopular measure like central government is taking many times, which sometimes we feel it is not good. But many of these states are not following that recommendation or the guidelines which Reserve Bank of India is giving to all states. And as per that guideline, none of the state or all states should have less than 20% debt of their GSDP. Like so, it should not be more than 20% of the GSDP. Okay. Now, what is happening for a popular measure? Most of the states are going out of their financial wisdom, whatever the requirement is there, and they are giving freebies in one way or other. And what is happening once you are spending your money not on capital and revenue generated expenses, but on a freebies and other things. So next year your revenue will be less and then further reduce, and your continuous expenses will continue because you have started a scheme like free of A or free B or free C category of any item or electricity or water or whatever we call it. And then you can't take it back. And it's not only for that government, for the subsequent government also to face that problem, because they will not be in a position to cut or totally stop those policies, and they will find it very difficult how to face the public. And you know, which are the states having this problem? We are having like Punjab is the worst working on this, which is having more than 56% of their debt to GSDP ratio against 20%, which is the maximum limit which it's supposed to have. Other states which are in that category is, you will be very surprised to know, is Rajasthan around 40%.
Okay.
Kerala around 38.39%, Andhra Pradesh 32%, and West Bengal 38%. Of course, there is a Gujarat and Haryana is also there, but I'm talking of these states because of their policies. They are not maintaining financial discipline, and they sooner or later, until unless they correct themselves, they will also face the same problem. And there was a statement from this committee, 15th committee, finance committee. They said that had these states were an independent country like Sri Lanka and other things, they were worse than Sri Lanka. We said this $50 billion is a debt against 80 billion GDP. It is the same ratio we are having many of these states. So until unless state started acting prudent manner, financial discipline, and come out with a scheme which is for deserving, not for everyone. Now the thing is, irrespective of whether you like it or not, whether you deserve it or not, everyone will get, say, certain unit free of electricity, certain unit amount of water, or certain unit of tax section, or no tax, or whatever that, or this thing free, that thing free, which is ultimately hitting the state exchequer and putting pressure on the center.
जब इस तरह का फाइनेंशियल डिसिप्लिन नहीं होता स्टेट में, मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी में या आप फिस्कल पॉलिसी में, दोनों को आप एक साथ रख लें, जहां पे डिसिप्लिन नहीं होता वहां पे क्या हालत हो जाती है कि स्टेट तो पुअर हो जाता है और इंडिविजुअल्स रिच हो जाते हैं.
Correct.
That sort of situation comes, and the same situation you will find in Pakistan, and up to certain extent you will find in India. जो आप कह रहे हो ना, फिजिकल डिसिप्लिन एंड ऑल दैट, अगेन आपको वो सारी सिचुएशन वहां पे मिलेगी. और श्रीलंका का मैं एक जगह पढ़ रहा था, स्पेशली फ्री बीज का ये ऐसा चक्कर है, एक बार ये आपको काट लेता है ना तो आपको एडिक्शन हो जाता है. और एडिक्शन कैसे हो जाता है कि पब्लिक को तो एक बार जिस चीज की आदत पड़ जाती है वो पड़ ही जाती है. और मतलब किसी इंटरनेशनल न्यूज़पेपर में तो उन्होंने कहा कि इन्होंने अपनी पूरी टैक्स स्ट्रक्चर ही चेंज कर दी. इन्होंने पहले तो कहा कि 30 लाख से नीचे तो कोई टैक्स लगेगा ही नहीं. अब 30 लाख के ऊपर कितने लोग हैं, गॉड नोज, बहुत कम लोग हैं. अच्छा, जीएसटी मैक्सिमम कर दिया इन्होंने टोटल 8%. कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स भी इन्होंने घटा दिया. इन्होंने जो डेली मिनिमम वेजेस में अच्छा खासा चेंज लेके उसको 1000 रुपीज कर दिया. तो आप जब इस तरह के चक्कर में फंस जाते हैं, तो जब आपका रेवेन्यू नहीं आएगा तो फिर होगा क्या? लोगों को तो मजे हैं, वो आपको वोट दे देंगे. अब आप देखिए केजरीवाल क्या कर रहा है या बाकी लोग क्या कर रहे हैं. अगर इलेक्शन, मतलब लेट अस बी वेरी वेरी ब्लंट एंड फ्रैंक अबाउट इट, अगर केजरीवाल ये सब करके इलेक्शन जीत सकता है तो मैं क्यों नहीं. नोट आई, वो अगर एक चीज देगा तो मैं दो दूंगा. मेरी से आई एम नॉट गिविंग इट फ्रॉम माई पॉकेट एज ए पॉलिटिशियन. सो दैट इज व्हाट इज हैपनिंग एंड दैट इज व्हाट एक्चुअली हैज हैपेंड. और ये प्रॉब्लम और भी है, मतलब गिरीश जी, जो एज ए मिलिट्री मैन मैं रियलाइज करता हूं कि जो एलटीटी वालों को इसने न्यूट्रलाइज किया, यही जो आपका राजपक्षे है, राजपक्षे, हाँ, गोतबाया राजपक्षे, इसने न्यूट्रलाइज किया तो ये हीरो बन गया. वहां पे हीरो बन के ही ये डिक्टेटर बन गया. पूरी फैमिली को, स्पीकर भी इसका, प्राइम मिनिस्टर भी इसका, पूरे हीरो बन गए, तो कोई काउंटर ही नहीं कर रहा। तो मैं जो पॉइंट आपके सामने लाना चाह रहा हूँ कि जो डेमोक्रेसी है वो फंक्शनल होनी चाहिए, उसमें जो एडवाइजर्स हैं वो सॉलिड होने चाहिए, एंड देयर शुड बी ए पॉलिटिकल लीडरशिप विच शुड लिसन टू द राइट एडवाइजर्स।
they everybody is knowing that by those popular measure what will happen, but these leaders, see, let's not underestimate or think that these leaders are not understanding the nitty gritty or details of it, but their immediate gain or the short term gain is much larger to them than the what will happen in future or what will happen in next 20 years. So this is the difference. One is having a short term vision, another is having a long term. So if you are looking for country as a whole, then you will never take such kind of a decision. But in the name of public, in the name of poor, all these leaders in India or outside, they are doing it. And then what is happening? Whether it is Venezuela, Venezuela is having the same situation. It is rich nation having so much of oil reserve and other thing, but just by keeping it free, now countries running. We just can't imagine what is the inflation rate. 70% is the inflation rate in Sri Lanka. Now you can imagine the people who were having an item which is 100 rupees, now next day he has to pay 70% more than that. So irrespective now amount, the same thing was happening in Russia when Gorbachev before that, and things were going out of control. And that's the reason, in spite of those low taxes, no income tax or very low income tax, or what you said, told about the Sri Lanka, the same public is now on the road because they realize ultimately up to what time you can bear, and then once you are not having anything to eat, because none of these countries are having self-dependency on fuel or food and other things. If you are not having all those things, then ultimately public is paying at the end of it. It happens after 10 years, somewhere it happens before that. Venezuela is one of the best example where I can tell you in Venezuela, if you are in a five-star hotel or other thing, persons can come in and then sit on your table and eat from your plate. You can't say no to them. So this is the situation, because you can't say no to the person who's demanding food, and if he finds that you are eating, he can take it from your plate. So these things has happening, but unfortunately, if I am just looking at short term for what to me, to my next election, or what will happen after that, if I'm not worried, these things going to happen, irrespective of how so intelligent or that person is. If financial discipline is not there, and then things are not moving as per your requirement or the present assumption you have taken, okay, this much revenue will be coming from, because I'm generating so much of the work, but it is not generated. Now they will say blame ki COVID ki wajah se nahi hua, or it has not happened because of geopolitical. But you have not having an action plan for plan B. If some things are not happening as per you, how will you handle that situation? Now, when the countries goes into ransack like this, like what is happening in Afghanistan, it is impacting all other surrounding nations. Same thing, if something goes wrong with the Pakistan, the same, we will also face the heat, because it is not confining to Pakistan, and the same thing is Sri Lanka. So we have to be careful, these countries, so that they should not create a problem, and then we'll have a unwanted influx or refugees and another thing, and creating problem for us. Any person can take a popular measure. For that, you don't need any visionary leader.
बिल्कुल
Very easy to say yes to everything, but it's tough to take a tough stand and then hard decision, which may not look good for some people, may not look good for the time being, but in a longer run they are good. So then we should accept those decisions.
कहीं किसी इंटरनेशनल लीडर को पढ़ रहा था, इनफैक्ट ली क्वान यू शायद उनका था वो स्टेटमेंट, कि जो गवर्नेंस है ना, गवर्नेंस इज नॉट ए पॉपुलरिटी कॉन्टेस्ट, कि आप फ्री बिजली दो, फ्री पानी दो, सब कुछ फ्री कर दो। अरे भाई, कोई किसी न किसी को तो टैक्स पे करना ही है, रेवेन्यू जनरेशन कहीं से तो होना है। मीन्स ये तो किसी भी घर की बात है कि भाई अगर मेरे घर में 1,000 रुपये आ रहे हैं तो मैं कितना खर्च कर सकता हूँ, मैं 2,000 कहाँ से खर्च करूँगा। इसके लिए आपको इकोनॉमिस्ट होने की तो जरूरत नहीं है, ये तो कॉमन सेंस की बात है। और सेम इन्होंने किया क्या, श्रीलंका वालों ने, इंपोर्ट तो इनका चल ही रहा है जो चल रहा है, और जो इनके एक्सपोर्ट थे या जहाँ पे रेवेन्यू जनरेशन होना था, वो कोविड की वजह से टूरिज्म बैठ गया। ऊपर से चाइना फैक्टर, कि उन्होंने जो हम्बन टोटा वाला जो पोर्ट उन्होंने 99 ईयर्स के लिए अब तो ले लिया, और खास बात यह है कि जो गोटाबाया राजापक्सा का घर है वहां पे, और उसकी वजह से आई डोंट नो व्हाट सॉर्ट ऑफ डिसीजन ही टुक, वेदर इट वाज ए बायस्ड डिसीजन, और अभी वहां से रेवेन्यू जनरेशन कुछ हो नहीं रहा। ऊपर से इनका जो मेन एक्सपोर्ट था चाय का वो गड़बड़ हो गया, वो ऑर्गेनिक टी के चक्कर में। एंड देयर वाज नोबडी टू टेल हिम, यू नो। वैसे एक इंडियन एग्रीकल्चरिस्ट भी है, वंदना शिवा, उसका भी नाम आ रहा है, जिसने उसको एडवाइस किया था ये ऑर्गेनिक टी प्रोड्यूस करने के लिए। माय पॉइंट इज के एज ए लीडर, मैं लीडरशिप की बात कर रहा हूं अभी, एज ए लीडर जब आप सक्सेसफुल होते हो तो ठीक है, दैट्स गुड, यू विल गेट लॉट ऑफ प्रेज एंड एवरीथिंग। बट अगर आप फेलियर हो जाते हो तो आपको फिर कोई सपोर्ट करने वाला नहीं है। उस हालत में रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी आपके ऊपर ही आएगी। तो जो इस तरह के जो डिसीजन हैं, यू ऑट टू टेक वेरी वेरी केयरफुली। और जो वहाँ पे जो उन्होंने जो ऑर्गेनिक एग्रीकल्चर करने का जो डिसीजन था, ये एक ऐसा डिसीजन था जहाँ पे उन्होंने डिसीजन मेकिंग प्रोसेस जो है अपने आप में करप्ट हो गया। ऐसे ऐसे लोग आके सलाह देने लगे जिनकी कोई स्टेक्स नहीं थी, कोई अकाउंटेबिलिटी नहीं थी। और एक एक्चुअली जो मिलिट्री वाले हैं वो तो एक बड़ी बात कर रहे हैं, व्हाट दे आर सेइंग इज कि 2 करोड़ की तो पॉपुलेशन है और मिलिट्री 1 लाख है, और मिलिट्री इज हाईली पेड। इतनी मिलिट्री की जरूरत क्या है भाई आपको? इंडिया से तो आपको लड़ना नहीं है। सिंपल एज दैट। जब एलटीटी था ठीक था, रिक्वायरमेंट थी आपकी, अभी तो आपको इतनी रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं है। तो एक पाकिस्तान की जो इकोनॉमी है, अगर आप कंपेयर करो, पाकिस्तान की इकोनॉमी भी इसलिए बैठ रही है कि उनका ऑफिशियल और अनऑफिशियल एक्सपेंडिचर जो है ना, मैं इसको एक्सपेंडिचर कह रहा हूँ, इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं कह रहा हूँ, मिलिट्री के ऊपर जरूरत से ज्यादा है।
करेक्ट।
उन्होंने वो एक व्हाइट एलिफेंट पाल लिया। तो जब आप व्हाइट एलिफेंट पालोगे तो भैया यही आपके साथ होना है जो श्रीलंका के साथ हो रहा है। अब मैं आपसे एक्चुअली जो जानना चाह रहा हूं, आपने इंडियन इकोनॉमी को भी थोड़ा सा देखा हुआ है, तो आपको क्या लगता है इंडिया का क्या सिचुएशन है फाइनेंशियली? वेयर आर वी कंफर्टेबल?
So I will say in 2014, we were having something around $460 billion loan at that time. External loan I'm talking, I'm not talking of internal. This is external debt was $460 billion. At that time, Indian GDP was $2 trillion. Okay. Now we are having a $720 billion external debt. And we are having $3 trillion GDP economy. So with respect to, we are not worse, we are better than that. At the same time, we are also having around $600 billion forex reserve with us.
चलिए गिरीश जी, आपने जो बात की ना कि टोटल जीडीपी हमारी कितनी है, टोटल एक्सटर्नल डेब्ट कितना है, उसका जो रेशो है वो एक्चुअली डिटरमाइन करता है काफ़ी हद तक कि आपकी फाइनेंशियल हेल्थ या इकोनॉमिक हेल्थ कंट्री की कैसी है। प्लस व्हाट यू से अबाउट रेट ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन, करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट, एक्सचेंज रेट, ये पैरामीटर्स का भी थोड़ा जो कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी है थोड़ी हमें समझा दीजिए और इंडिया को प्लेस कर दीजिए उनके ऊपर।
If we look at situation at presently, our current account deficit is a concern for us. Why? Because of the recent prices in oil and other commodities which was increasing. But the government of India first target is the inflation, because CAD is an issue, but government of India's first priority is inflation. And for that, they are basically first controlling the price of the energy. Energy, I mean, basically petroleum products and other thing, and then power and other thing. If you look at that, government of India has taken a very good decision to allow all those plants which were not running and under an extraordinary power, which was lies with the central government, that they have allowed to import coal, so that all the plants based on coal power plant, because of shortage of, or could have caused a shortage of non-availability of coal, they allowed them to import coal and run them to the full capacity, so that India is not deficit in the power, which was the first requirement for industries to continue to grow. Otherwise, if we are not having sufficient power, industrial growth will impact, and that will have an impact on the inflation and non-availability of the essential item.
लोग इस गलतफहमी में हैं कि इंडिया को कोल इंपोर्ट करने की क्या जरूरत है, जबकि एक्चुअल में जो पिछली बार आपने मेरे को बताया था कि जो हमारा जो कोल है वो इतना अच्छा नहीं है इलेक्ट्रिसिटी जनरेट करने के लिए? ऐसा कुछ है बाहर के कोल में और हमारे कोल में क्या डिफरेंस है?
कोल के अंदर एश क्वांटिटी कितने परसेंटेज है, दैट इम्पैक्ट द क्वालिटी फॉर एमिशन as well as in the steel plant. Like
ओके।
steel plant में भी coal का use होता है, coke is being used. So there also they need mix of Indian as well as imported coal where the ash quantity percentage is less. So that was the right decision which was taken. So basically inflation is a bigger concern, and Reserve Bank of India and central government both are working tandem in synchronous so that we can handle it. And energy is one of the major costs. And we have seen in the last couple of 2-3 weeks that inflation rate has come down. Our target is to come around 6 or 6.5 in next few weeks. And it is expected that we will be, because of the monsoon, once all over India, once monsoon is there, then these things, food items and other products will bear the inflation, which is measuring basket, will be better off than what was 2 weeks before. This situation, inflation was their primary target, then CAD, and then other factors. And as far as other measures are concerned, wheat and other things, Government of India has taken a measure to support countries which are friendly to us. We are providing them, whether it is UAE or other countries. And otherwise, we are keeping sufficient stocks for ourselves so that shortage should not be an issue as far as food security is concerned for India. But recession is a worldwide fear. And as we discussed in the last meeting also, so we are taking steps to how to handle that recession if it is there, how in that situation our country should behave so that it should not happen that very high inflation and recession, which is very, code pe khaaj paida hona, it's that kind of a situation. We are not one whammy, double whammy, where higher inflation and recession, which is not so common. Otherwise, people think, oh, recession is there, but this recession with high inflation. So even USA is also facing this problem. Europe is facing this problem. Australia is facing, all those countries are facing this problem. And of course, Russia and Ukraine will be the worst sufferer. That point is instability in UK is also one of the reasons, because political uncertainty in any countries, and especially in the top 5 country, UK is top 5 in the GDP point of view, another thing, economy point of view, because of the leadership uncertainty for next couple of weeks and months, we can say, till Boris Johnson is successor is find out. And till then, no major decision will be taken by the existing government of UK and other things. So whatever the business decision and other things will have an impact in the Europe as well as for the countries who are working with Britain.
जैसे हमारी मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ फाइनेंस है, रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया है, ओवरऑल जो टॉप फाइनेंशियल एडवाइजर्स हैं जो मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ फाइनेंस में बैठते हैं, मैं ब्यूरोक्रेट्स की बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ, उसके अलावा यह जो कॉमर्स मिनिस्ट्री है, आज उन्होंने एक्चुअली, आज मेरे ख्याल से येस्टरडे देयर वाज ए ऑर्डर विच वाज इशूड बाय द कॉमर्स मिनिस्ट्री एक्चुअली, कि जो एफडीआई का कोई भी जो ऑफर है या कोई भी जो प्रपोजल है, विद इन 90 days यू हैव टू क्लियर इट, यू हैव टू गिव ए डिसीजन येस और नो, नॉट दैट कि आप उसको लटका के रखें टिपिकल ब्यूरोक्रेटिक रेड टेप में. तो ऑल दीज थिंग्स आर नॉट द इंडिकेटिव ऑफ द फैक्ट दैट top leadership is wise enough, careful enough to manage the finances in a very, very calibrated way.
Actually, they are taken with a caution also, let me tell you, because earlier similar kind of a thing was happening. But what is happening, we are having a not so friendly neighbor also, who are rich in financial and other things. They may come out from a different base. And if such proposals are coming, so Government of India is also equally concerned about whether such proposals are financially from a friendly countries or from which can create a problem for us. Like you have seen Hawaii and other thing, which is passed on that working in India and passed on in the name of dividend or in the name of royalty and other things. So countries worried, and so all these things are there, but they're a friendly country like Japan and all those things, from where the proposals are taken up in a fast manner. But some recently, because of the sanction from US and UN, UAE is under watchful list, not because of UAE action, because of the Russian finance is routing through UAE. And these sanctions wants all those countries who are working with UAE. It's not that India alone or all those countries who are working with UAE, we have to ask for their know by customer KYC in a more detail than which was 2 months before. So it's a dynamic situation. With time to time we have to change. But at the same time, you must have seen like Quad, India, US, UAE, Israel. They are making another combination for business point of view, and India and UAE is working very hard, fast on that, and that is helping both the countries to increase their business and helping each other, giving priority to each other business. And this is also increasing, they are wanted to increase that 40 billion dollar worth of business to be changed to 100 billion dollar in next 4 to 5 years. So this is what the target set by UAE and Indian government for the companies who are working together. So Quad was from the defense point of view, but this structure, which is UAE, India, Israel, and US, they are working. And then later on, I think Saudi Arabia will also join and other. So more and more such countries, which was earlier, it was, you can't take the name of Israel when you're going to Middle East, or if your stamp, passport was stamped Israel, then you cannot go to Middle East. But now that things has changed, and India is maintaining a very good relation from working point of view, and it is helping Indian business as well as Indian people who are working there. And that is the best part of it. Otherwise, you are trying to save one thing, you're losing somewhere. But here we are win-win situation for both India as well as for UAE and Israel, and that is happening.
कल एक्चुअली योगी जी ने एक मॉल इनॉग्रेट किया है लखनऊ में, लुलू, LULU. आई बिलीव इट इज़ ए कंपनी फ्रॉम यूएई.
Correct,
और
correct.
ये तो इनॉग्रेट हो गया, अभी शुरू हो गया है, तो फंक्शनल हो गया. अभी बाकी भी इस तरह के मॉल्स या शॉपिंग कॉम्प्लेक्सेस या इस तरह का इन्वेस्टमेंट आ रहा है मिडिल ईस्ट की तरफ से, स्पेशली यूएई की तरफ से. और मेरे ख्याल से श्रीनगर में भी उनका प्रपोजल चल रहा है इस तरह के मॉल खोलने के लिए. तो ये एक स्ट्रेटेजिक और फाइनेंशियल दोनों ही एक डबल एक्सरसाइज है इंडिया की तरफ से. तो आई अज्यूम with the entire conversation which we had today that India is into safe hands as far as our finances are concerned, our economy is concerned. It's a dynamic situation. We cannot afford to be complacent, because जब complacency set होगी तो फिर तो कुछ भी हो सकता है, then
Correct.
एनीथिंग इज पॉसिबल. और श्रीलंका ने वही गलती की. तो मेरे ख्याल से कि हमारे यहाँ जो डेमोक्रेटिक सिस्टम है, डिसीजन मेकिंग का फाइनेंस के मामलों में जो सिस्टम है, एंड निर्मला सीतारमन मतलब जिस तरीके से काम कर रही है, तो आई डोंट थिंक कि अब जिस तरीके से फंक्शनिंग हो रही है उसमें कोई मुझे रिस्क इस टाइप का नहीं लग रहा है कि श्रीलंका जैसी कोई पोजीशन यहाँ पे क्रिएट होने जा रही है. इट इज़ टू बिग इकोनॉमी एक्चुअली टू फेल. So thank you so much, Girish ji. It has been a pleasure interacting with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so
It
much.
has been a wonderful conversation with Girish ji. I hope you liked it. We will have more on the subject. Please like, share and subscribe. I will see you in next video. Thank you.